if you're trying to do something that just hasn't been done, right, or make anything happen, really, you just have to do your homework, right? You have to do your homework on who you're meeting with. You have to do your homework on what you're building. You have to do your homework on what your customers want, and you have to do your homework on where the market's going, right? And so
Mhm.
that's the thing is, I'll probably spend anywhere between 30, hours a weekend just doing homework, right, across the board.
I ask a lot of questions like, why are we doing this? What's the priority? Like, where am I doing the right thing at the right time? And what is everyone else working on? And just try to make sure that I'm like staying on top of what needs to be done. And it's a little bit of just humility. Sometimes if you're going in the wrong direction and someone's like, I don't think that's the right way, then you have to be like, all right, cool, we'll switch and we'll swerve.
There are just nuances to networking where you don't go up to someone and you're so excited to meet them that you interrupt their conversation that they're having with someone else, right? Like you don't do that.
All right. Welcome to Coding in Context, the podcast where we dive into the latest AI trends, interview influential figures in the developer community, and share insights on maximizing developer productivity. I'm your host, Mason Williams, software engineer at Pieces. In today's episode, we'll take you through a typical week at our Cincinnati office. You'll get to meet the team, learn about our daily routines, and discover how we manage our release schedule, and get a glimpse into the company culture that Pieces has. So let's get started by meeting the team. Tsavo, if you could introduce yourself,
Sure.
Give us a fun fact and a bit about your background at Pieces.
All right. So, hey, everyone, I'm Tsavo. You probably have seen me on a couple of live streams. Fun fact, I'm the oldest of five. And yeah, all of my siblings are very different backgrounds, very different industries, but we love to get together and just kick it. So big family guy, I would say. That's a good fun fact. And then, yeah, I mean, a little bit of context, this is, Pieces is our kind of third company and our fifth major project. So I've been taking swings at the startup and the technical space since I was like 17, and just haven't let up since. So yeah, we're a decade in so far, and I've probably written more code than I've spoken English in my life. I'll say that. But yeah, here we are. Looking forward to the podcast here.
Awesome. Mack, you want to go next?
For sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Mack here, co-founder, chief product officer. Very excited to be sharing a little bit more about our journey and some of our story just to get to where we are. Fun fact. I mean, a couple come to mind. I mean, how am I going to surpass Tsavo's fun fact of being a family man? No, I mean, my usual go-to for that is I learned how to ride a bike when I was a two-wheel bike when I was 2 years old. So if you could imagine like a little toddler basically riding a bicycle on two wheels, zooming around the neighborhood, that was me. Big into sports, happy to talk, sports with people. Go Cleveland Browns and any Cleveland sports teams. Always have to call that out. And yeah, just been obviously, we've been working on Pieces for a few years now. My startup journey goes back to my undergraduate career at Miami of Ohio, where a lot of us first met, and some of us joined forces and started on this entrepreneurial journey together. It's been a whirlwind, lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of lessons, lots of stories. I'm sure we'll get a lot deeper into it, but like I said, excited to share and looking forward to talking more.
Awesome. Mark?
Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm the CTO here at Pieces. I always love the fun fact because I try to keep it, not super standard, but, change it around a little bit. I am an adrenaline junkie. So I love, from roller coasters, I'm on a paintball team, snowboarding, love snowboarding. But also too, like, I'm a super big nerd, so love to code. I love like board games. I love like card games, anything like that. But also a huge passion of myself is, anything plants. So whether it's like my garden outside or all of my like indoor plants, you can't see it right now, just because this room is a work in progress. But I promise you, the downstairs is absolutely a jungle. But yeah, absolutely. Apart from the fun fact, what I do here at Pieces is I manage a lot of what's going on within Pieces OS. And then I also, I get the pleasure to work with the product team on Mac side, as well as the ML team on that side. But yeah, just like with Tsavo and Mack, the journey starts back at Miami, and from sleeping on couches to absolutely just like heads down grinding in the evenings. But yeah, here we are. Excited. Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks, Mason.
Awesome. And last but definitely not least, Rosie.
Hey, yeah, thank you. I'm Rosie. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Pieces, and I'm a bit of an anomaly compared to these guys because I didn't start this in college. I actually worked in software for 8 or 9 years, just in different industries and different companies for a while, and then only recently joined the startup world with Pieces 6 months ago, which is crazy that it's been already 6 months, and it also feels like I've been here forever. I do a lot of different things. I mean, customer is a lot of things for a startup. So everything from managing pilot clients to seeing how Pieces is going to work in an enterprise environment, all the way down to managing our social partners who are, blasting out Pieces and talking about them, all the way to the support lines. So if you send us an email, I'll probably answer. My fun fact is when I'm not working, I'm riding my bike. I didn't start at 2 years old. Mac, that was a fun fact I didn't know about you, but I bet I'm faster than you now. Because I do like to race bicycles as whenever I have time.
Definitely faster, and it can probably stay on the bike a lot longer than me. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I speaking of Miami, apparently Rosie does like to bike all the way up to Miami, which is about a 50-minute drive alone. So I don't know how she bikes up there. But it seems like we have a lot of athletes, but also very smart people in our company. And I want to kind of dive into more of kind of the day-to-day of Pieces, kind of behind the scenes. People don't get to see that often. We talk about it in little live streams that we do. Maybe we'll do it in meetups that we host. But I want to start off with Tsavo here. When you're approaching, maybe not like as early as, brushing your teeth in the morning, but as you get into the office, what's going through your mind day to day? What are your priorities? Maybe you can start when you were first at the company and then how that evolved to where we are now.
Yeah, I would say, thematically, when you're kind of working on getting a company off the ground, it's you got to build product, you got to talk to customers, and you got to network, right? And when I mean network, I mean like just embed into as many communities as you can, right? Investor communities, it could be open source communities, it could be online communities, whatever. And just realize, like, especially if you're kind of a younger founder, just realize like you probably haven't lived long enough to have like a robust network to lean on. And so you have to be seeking out proactively these opportunities to learn, grow, and build relationships. And I will say one thing on the relationship side is, you got to make sure they're super authentic, right? And so it's less about asking for things, and it's more about like just doing things and doing them authentically to where the recognition and the appreciation and kind of the rapport is genuine, right? And so it's just a side note on the networking component, but for me, that carries into the day to day, right? So it's always scouting like where's everyone at in the team, right? And making sure like everyone's in the right headspace, everyone's feeling good, everyone's ready to build some amazing stuff. And then, expanding from the internal world, it's the external world, right? How are our users doing? Is everyone happy? What's going on? Are there any fires to put out? Things like that. And so, a lot of intricacies there. And I would say, just being aware and being empathetic to the point where you feel, for and with your team and for and with your end users is a super, super important thing to never lose sight of, right? And I think that's one of the things that I try and ground myself in every day is just, it's not about me, right? But it's about, everyone around me, right? And it's, really just taking the, this is how I feel today, like just out of the picture, which is a hard thing to do, right? But the more you can do that and kind of check it at the door, you can come in with clarity. You can come into each meeting not being frustrated with the previous one or whatever else. And I think that's a super important muscle to just build over time. And that muscle is kind of underpinned by patience, right? And so this leads me to, the other components where, I still scout a ton of technology, right? And kind of like lower component things in the supply chain that might affect us a year from now or 2 years from now, or might, enable a certain feature to be viable, in which I can, go and run that, by investors, run that by customers and so on. But that patience is also built at the point where you're getting your hands dirty, right? You're working on stuff, you're head banging, you're going to try 10, 20, 100 different things that won't work. And, by 99 failures, you're really, really at your limit, right? This might happen for a day, might happen for a week, whatever. But that muscle of understanding that you can have that breakthrough and this problem can be solved, really, really, again, just, insulates that patience component. So I would say, to sum it all up, I always start my day with, how can I be patient? How can I be generous? And, not to get into faith too much, but, certainly being grounded in, a higher responsibility to be a person for and with others. I think that's really key.
Yeah,
So,
I really like that check it at the door mentality. That really allows you to get into that space that you need to kind of operate at the level that, Pieces needs. And I want to go to Rosie. I know maybe your time isn't as long at Pieces, definitely, than Tsavo or Mack or Mark, but I want to know, kind of, as you approach maybe coming from a different kind of industry into this kind of tech startup where it is very high pace, high velocity, everything is kind of thrown at you. How do you kind of get in the right mindset? Maybe not a check at the door, but how do you get in the right mindset just to do your job at the highest level?
It takes some it takes some patience. It takes some trial and error, I think. So what I try to do most days is try to spend like an hour or two. I try to work early, I guess, is the best way to do it, where I try to get going as early as I can before things get really crazy, and try to kind of get myself into what are the things that I would like to get off my plate before chaos might happen, because you're not 100% sure what's going to happen that day, and a lot of things can change, and you want to be able to be flexible with that. But some work has to get done. There's a few things I have to do pretty much every single day, and I just try to knock them out as early as possible. I also do a whole lot of I ask a lot of questions like, why are we doing this? What's the priority? Where am I doing the right thing at the right time, and what is everyone else working on? And just try to make sure that I'm staying on top of what needs to be done. And it's a little bit of just humility. Sometimes if you're going in the wrong direction and someone's like, I don't think that's the right way, then you have to be like, all right, cool, we'll switch and we'll swerve.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, especially humility is a big part of Pieces culture. Being able to, at any level in our company, being able to have a direct conversation with somebody and feel that you have kind of, obviously you're heard, but that the outcome will be the best for the company. And obviously I want to hit Mark and Mack here. I know that you are kind of more, focused. Obviously Mark is more, technically focused. Mack is more product focused. When you think about your day-to-day at Pieces, Mack, when you kind of walk in the office, or whether you're on, a product sync that we do weekly now, what is going through your head, looking forward? I want to ask, product wise, how are you trying to make sure that we have the best chance possible, obviously, to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of things come to mind, listening to Tsavo, listening to Rosie and stuff. I do want to just make a quick shout out before I dive into that to Tsavo's point on networking, and the importance of building that network and surrounding yourselves with great people, especially in the early days. I think Tsavo could write a book on this. He's an absolute expert networker, right? He just puts himself out there in the most authentic ways. And I product aside, technology aside, you could build the best technology and the best products in the world, but if you can't go and explain it and talk to people and put it in front of people and have it resonate with them, it's not going to go anywhere. And so it's such a big contributing factor to success. For me, in so for context for people, we have obviously Pieces OS, which is a product that we ship to natively to Mac OS, Windows, and Linux that powers our front end facing and products and plugins. We have the Pieces for Developers desktop application that is also paired on Mac OS, Windows, and Linux, and then we have a variety of plugins. So Pieces for Developers in VS Code, Visual Studio, the entire JetBrains suite. So WebStorm, IntelliJ, PyCharm, etc. And then the browsers, so Chrome, Brave,
Safari, Edge,
Safari. There's a million, and then Obsidian, Jupyter. We have a million plugins. And so when Rosie mentions chaos, right? As you can imagine, with all those products and all those developers and all those users who are consuming those products, it creates a whole lot of chaos, right? There's things with regard to new features. There's things with regard to maintenance and maintaining those products and features. There's obviously the customer element and fielding the support and what's going wrong in the wild, diagnosing that, troubleshooting it, solving it. For me, a lot of what leads to our success is very simply just being aligned, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that keeping that team aligned is critical, and keeping this group here aligned is also key, right? Because Tsavo is obviously our main sort of visionary for our products and what we're building. He also speaks to customers and investors and partners religiously and has an amazing perspective on what we need to go and build next. Rosie also pairs that with fielding support. What's going wrong, right? Where are we falling short? Where do we need to double tap? Mark obviously is my number one partner in crime. We work very closely together on all things product. He's a technical wizard and super smart with working with the team and all the infrastructure and all the database work and all the cloud feature. He's just awesome there. But keeping that team aligned on what we're doing at any given moment is key. And that is to mitigate this idea of curveballs, right? So the last thing that I want is for one of our product owners or myself or anybody to go and spend a week working on a feature and come back to this group and be like, oh, I just built this feature. And everybody's like, why the hell were you working on that when we need to be working on this? And so that is a failure, on our end if that happens. And so that product meeting is key to keep people aligned and in sync and expectations set accordingly so that we don't have curveballs. And I think that is a major leader to success for keeping that team working well and also keeping the products in sync.
Yeah, I know that you said you work, hand in hand with Mark. Obviously, every single day, it's super, super tightly coupled. Whether it's our desktop app or any of our products, like you said, with our kind of core Pieces OS as well as our cloud infrastructure. And Mark, as you kind of approach your day to day, I know you interact with our machine learning team quite a lot as well, which we haven't brought up, which is they're obviously superstars. Can't praise them enough, but from your day-to-day priorities wise, or maybe just collaboration wise, how do you go about approaching, building features, maintaining what we already have? It's a massive product. So where's your kind of headspace around that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think even just starting out the day, I think is the most important thing. And there's certain things that are going to remain stable. That are going to happen every single day. And there's certain things that are going to be a little bit more dynamic based on whatever problems we have at hand. So I think the things that start a little bit more dynamic, believe it or not, and I'm sure that Tsavo, Mack, and Rosie can also resonate with this, is that actually happens before the teeth get brushed. Even while, sleeping is going on. Is that kind of pre-processing? Yeah. The pre-processing of all right, what are some sort of technical challenges at hand, and that kind of changes day to day, week to week, month to month of hey, do we have some crazy things going on, product or infrastructure, ML, whether it's supply chain or whether it's unsolvable problems that need to be solved, or any sort of super critical bugs. All of which, will need to get pre-processed and brewed not only by myself, but Tsavo, Mack, and also and anyone, and also too a lot of this, some of these, a lot of, well, believe it or not, actually a lot of these things will come from our support and our products. So they all will ping Rosie or like 1 million tickets a day. Flashback to like the start of the year.
Oh,
Hard drive issue. That was like massive, massive, massive problem. But like 1 million tickets all go to Rosie. Rosie's like, "Yo, what's going on?" We're like, "Uh-oh, something's going on." 9
hard
patches later,
things.
we've got
yeah,
a good solution. But we're still seeing tickets today. But that's okay. That's expected.
it happens.
Way less tickets today.
Way less tickets.
Yeah.
The things that remain stable though, and Mac mentioned it, Saba mentioned it, Rosie mentioned it. You know, things like patience. Oh my gosh, patience is key. Not only with like yourself in your own work, but patience with others on the team, and upmost even more patience with users in general, because these are the people who are like making or breaking our company to begin with. If we don't have our users and we're not building for our users, then what are we doing? You know, we build developer tools. So at the end of the day, it's patience as well too. It's like, just like what Saba was saying, you got to check some of your emotions sometimes at the door, and it's every day. It's like, you wake up, it's a new day, or even it's a new meeting, or it's a new time, and it's like, drive, determination, dedication, and just super 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 driven. Every second, every minute, every hour matters. um, uh, and also to that, we're rowing in the same direction, like what Mac was saying.
Yeah.
Because if we're not rowing in the same direction, then we're working against ourselves as opposed to working together. But the things that do remain stable every single day, is really just like analytics, support, filling in quotas, and then the daily meetings. So whether it's like meeting with an individual product owner, or meeting with the machine learning team, just getting a snapshot of what's going on there, and things that are coming through the supply chain that need to be queued up with whatever's going on in infrastructure, or queued up with whatever is going on with product and needs to be communicated. As well too, Sava does a ton, and he doesn't mention a lot of this because it happens in the background. But the research. This is super huge, and a lot of this stuff doesn't even come to fruition till years down the line. But it's like these are many chess moves that then just what's the saying? It's seemingly not at all, then suddenly all at once. That's the case here. So definitely super super super. I'm missing the word, but grateful to have not only like a wonderful CEO when it comes to like networking, but also on the technical front, like absolutely getting after it.
Yeah, it's a great combination to have, especially when you're running, an extremely technical company. It's pretty deep in tech. We are touching, LLM models. We're building our own micro models all over the place, all the way to building your own Dart packages and getting them in open source. Like this is Sava's kind of day to day, and he's super humble. That kind of brings me to kind of our core values. I don't want to get too like these are our core values. We you have to stick with them. Obviously, we're very like we're a very casual company, but we are extremely hardworking. I want to hit on a few of them, and then obviously if there's any kind of examples that come up as we're kind of talking, feel free to share. But obviously, we've mentioned kind of this humbleness and hardworking aspect all throughout this talk. And I want to ask Tsavo, to start, just when you're thinking about networking, what is the benefit to, maybe some people are just starting out in their career, maybe they're super young founders. What is the benefit of having that combination of being extremely humble, but also hardworking, so that, you can approach something and have the confidence to approach someone, that, you're like, you're getting your work done behind the scenes, but so you can be super humble up front.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that come to mind, but number one is you have to you really have to ground yourself in this idea that you're not better than anyone, right? I think it's super super important, and you're not too good for anything, right? Like we have a saying in our company that's like no task is too small to execute, right? And so if Mark is doing unit tests, or if Mark is doing I don't know, like some refactoring or something, like he's going to be getting after it with with the same exact enthusiasm as the cool stuff, right? The stuff you want to do. And so when I think about that in the context of networking, it's like you just show up, right? And so if our university is like, hey, like, can you guys come out and come to this event or whatever else, like we do our best to represent. Same thing goes on in the local community, right? And so I think like showing up is really important. And in the early days, you might not get asked to show up and speak, and you might not get asked to even go to these network events. But when you do show up to an event, right, like maybe it's a community meetup, or maybe it's an alumni event or whatever else, knowing when to hold your tongue, and then when to actually ask a question, or when to interject in a conversation or things like that, I think that's super important as well, right? And just knowing like there are just nuances to networking where you don't go up to someone and you're so excited to meet them that you interrupt their conversation that they're having with someone else, right? Like you don't do that. And sometimes you just have to accept like, hey, I'm not going to meet this person today. I was there, and it gave me the opportunity to meet him. But if that opportunity didn't, come to reality, right? Like it is what it is, right? And just know that there's going to be another opportunity in the future. So I think like that's really important, and people recognize that too, right? They recognize that you're there. They recognize that you're not like, overly, I would say like maybe annoying is a good way of putting it, right? Just coming off as like, hey, I'm here. I know I'd love to meet you, and they already know that you'd love to meet them too, right? Like they know that. And so you're just like, you do this a couple of times, and then you get noticed, right? And then when you do meet them, they appreciate it, right? And then I would say on the technical side, I didn't know if we wanted to talk about that, but
Go.
I just think like I do a lot of like time traveling basically, and it's like you just have to anticipate, and you have to do your homework, and that's just as it goes, right? If you're trying to if you're trying to do something that just hasn't been done, right, or make anything happen, really, you just have to do your homework, right? You have to do your homework on who you're meeting with. You have to do your homework on what you're building. You have to do your homework on what your customers want, and you have to do your homework on where the market's going, right? And so that's the thing is, I'll probably spend anywhere between 30, hours a weekend just doing homework, right, across the board. And the thing is, like, you have the homework that you're asked to do, and you have the homework that you're going to do anyways, which takes it a step further. And I think that's another thing too, is don't do the bare minimum, right? Go above and beyond no matter what, because you're always going to learn something extra. Like take the time to understand this thing that you don't right away, right?
That's right. Yeah. And I think, like you said, always go above and beyond. You're going to learn something. And I think that those things that you don't plan on learning usually end up being the most important things. That's like, right. Ironically, like it just happens. Maybe that's an opportunity that comes up to, work at a better company. Maybe your dream job comes up because you were just, replying to some tweet, and a person reaches out to you, right? There's so many kind of micro interactions that lead to this larger outcome in life that I think we see almost on a day-to-day basis, especially as we're growing like crazy right now. And Mack, I know that, just to take another step back, and, obviously we're super hardworking, but one thing that I've noticed is that Pieces company is very close. We're like all very close friends, which is not something that you get at every company. Maybe it's, more common in startups as you're a smaller team, you're working closely together, but definitely not at larger companies. And, we're going to birthday parties together. We're having dinners, I want to ask Mack, as you kind of look back, and sorry, not to put this kind of not, obviously work related question on Mack, but as you kind of look back, what are some of your kind of favorite memorable experiences that are tied to pieces, maybe not, working day to day, but just more of like making friendships, making bonds with people that have, obviously lasted till today? Is there anything that top of mind or anyone, can share?
It's hilarious because we were thinking a little bit about this before we even started recording. And Mark made the comment, he's like, yeah, something's going to come to me like on the spot. And I was thinking about like, interesting moments. And all of a sudden, like a rush of like good memories and moments come.
Yeah.
It's to touch on like the friendships thing, right? Like a lot of startups, I think, like for us, a lot of our journey working together started when we were young, we were in university. And if we're thinking about what that looks like, our culture in university is very much, you're spending time, you're going to your classes, you're doing your homework. So you're working hard on one side, but then you're also doing a lot in your social life. And it depends on who you are. But in our case, we were doing a lot in our social life at the time. And so obviously those things kind of mold together a little bit. And in the entrepreneurship world, people love, like, it's a passion, right? So like in the early days, it's like so exciting and exhilarating to be working on something brand new. And there's all the potential and all the capabilities and all the opportunities. And it's very exciting work. So you ultimately do that in a fun way. Like sometimes you're drinking some wine while you're doing some work in those moments. Or sometimes, like Mark said, you're working super late and you end up sleeping on the couch. And then you wake up the next day, you're like, holy fuck, I'm so tired. Like there's so many of those moments. And obviously those moments in the trenches together build special bonds with the early folks. I think as time goes on though, and as the company grows, like, while a lot of those core foundational friendships are obviously still there, the lines between like being a friend and being a colleague start to get a little bit further separated, because like where we are, we have work to do, right? And I don't necessarily want to come to the office and I don't want everybody to think, oh, I'm their friend. I want them to think, okay, no, I'm the one who's really going to ultimately be helping hold them accountable for the things that we need to get done this week from product perspective or support perspective, whatever it is. And like that line for some can be blurry, and over time it needs to be unblurred. And that's, if it's too blurry, we run into problems, I think, because people get a little bit too lax. We could go deeper down that path, but there's memories, thinking about memories and stuff like good times and so on. Like obviously we do social things as a company together to blow off some steam. We go to the Adrenaline Park. We have gone to Kings Island here in Cincinnati. There's a whole series of stories there we could talk about. This is where you'd like flash a photo of Mac like holding on a roller coaster.
We'll get that in. We'll get that in post.
Yeah, and then shout out Landon.
Yeah.
And there's all types of things there, but like some of the best memories are actually the late nights where we're working on a release. And we're in the office, it's after hours, and I'm talking, it's like 9, 10, 11, even sometimes going into like the early morning hours, 12, 1, 2 a.m. If it's crazy, like there are moments like that where we're just working our ass off trying to get a new release out the door. And we could talk more about releases later or on another episode. I mean, they're a whole episode in and of itself. Yeah. But those are some great memories because we're having a good time in those moments. We're cracking open a glass of wine. We're spending 20 or 30 minutes waiting for a build to finish. We're all as a group like pulling it down, banging away on the products and testing them across Mac OS, Windows, and Linux and the various extensions. And it's just a good time. And we're all aligned. We're all working towards the same goal. We're having fun together. We're cracking jokes. And that's truly special to me. And I think that those are the moments that like, I don't know, those are the moments that you'll never forget. Those are the moments why people do this thing,
Yeah, it's absolutely like, hard work pays off. Like we work hard, but obviously it is a passion at the very core of it, right? You don't get into this just because you have like, obviously there's monetary benefit, but like you don't get into that because of that. There's much easier ways to make money. This is not the easiest route to that. This is the path of most resistance for that objective. But on that path of most resistance, you're going to learn probably 100x more than the person that is, obviously making 2 times, 3 times the amount you are, right? You're going to learn so much more that's going to help you later in your career, or, not even career wise, just personal, life. Whether I believe, like, I don't even think about it going through the day, but I learn like life lessons just like every single day. And it's good to reflect on them sometimes, because that's when you really, they come to fruition. You really kind of bring them out of your day to day. But yeah, I wanted to touch on Mark and Rosie as we kind of wrap up here. Rosie, I keep mentioning that you're kind of new, but you've been here, it seems like, for a couple weeks now, but it's over 6 months now.
Yeah.
Time is flying by.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, like, when you first joined, how your kind of perspective of pieces has evolved over time, because I think it's so interesting. Everyone comes from different backgrounds at pieces, even though most of our company is from Miami University. Go Red Hawks. But I want to know, like, from your first kind of experience, your first few weeks getting into the company now to where obviously you're much more comfortable with everybody, and much more ingrained in our company. You're a very core aspect of it. How has that evolved, and maybe what has helped that?
So the reason I started with pieces is because Tsavo and Mack just blew me away I got to attend a demo, and I got to have kind of a in-depth conversation on what was going on in the company. And I was so impressed by the two of them, because I was just like, these guys are so smart, but also so articulate and put together. And also this product is so cool. I mean, I've been working in technology for a long time, and dev tools have always been a little bit of a passion of mine. And seeing such a cool dev tool that was like so much more than a dev tool, and like where it was going. And again, Tsavo was just the killer at selling the vision. And I was just like, right there with it. I was like, yeah, I'm on the train. Let's go. So it started out with kind of like a deep admiration for the people who worked here. And then I met Mark, and obviously was just like blown away by his knowledge and articulation of that knowledge. And then I met the whole team. And so I got into pieces with this kind of deep respect for the individuals who are working on a really amazing, greater picture vision and product. And, as you get into it, you see the hard parts of it. You see where where people rub against each other. You see where the product rubs against itself. Like you start to see the weak parts, but you also see the deep commitment to fixing those deep parts, and also how everybody is like, sure, I'll just do it. Like, or can you do it right now? I can't, but can you? And of course, it's the work ethic and the true belief in what we're doing. So it's funny. I feel part of the team, and also I still sometimes, I mean, I didn't go to Miami with you guys. We didn't drink together at the Brick House or whatever it's called. I went to Georgia Tech, much different. But I feel like these people that I work with are becoming extremely important figures in my life, and like from a friendship level, but also just from a colleague that I deeply admire. And that's the nice thing, that nothing has changed, right? As far as that goes, I still deeply admire everybody I work with, and I've seen all the bad parts for the most part too, and I still admire. And that's how I think, it's the group of people you want to stick with, and I'll fight with you guys all day long, but at the end of the day, like we're going together to this great direction. And so I think it's that.
As you kind of look into the future, obviously there's a ton on your plate right now, and you have a huge tree below you now. How do you see that? What are your kind of ending thoughts here?
There's a lot of things that come to my mind. The first thing is I actually don't see it as like I don't see like a tree structure. I actually see like the people who I don't call like the people who like work for me. I don't say that. I say like the people who work with me, because I'm very much so working with them as well. also too, like a really important thing is not like it's my way or the highway, or like I am always going to be right. As much as I'd love to be, that's not always true. And also too, like when working with people, I get humbled all the time. I love a good humbling, nothing's better than a good humbling. And that has never changed. Whether it's getting humbled from like a great coding challenge of like, hey, like let's see who can build the fastest map, or whether it's like I've been grinding on this problem for days, weeks, months on end, and it is beating me up. Um, but yeah, a lot of things that also too haven't changed is like, yo, hey, there's a hole, go fill it. Very much so like, hey, in the early days, roughly five of us, we were doing everything. Mac and Savo can attest. I'm absolutely not the best when it comes to UI and CSS and so on. I can do it if I have to. But yes, that is definitely not my strong suit. I like the data. I like the data pipes. I like how things kind of move around. It's just like how my brain works. Not so much I'm one pixel off. I can see it, and it bothers me big time. And then I have like a million different ways to try to solve them, but I try to lean on Mac and Savo helping me out, especially in the early days. But some of the things that have changed is just very natural progressions. Like as you go through the ropes, as you also like encounter massive problems, there's minimum sets of processes that are really, really, really important to set in place. Like a very simple case of that is like just the case of like even having like PRs,
Yeah.
very, very, very simple.
Yeah.
And also too, I mean, there's a million things as well as like no one person can do it. We win as a team. That hasn't changed. We've always worked, very well together. And also too, it's very important to continue to upscale yourself. Very, very important. Not only upscale yourself, but I like to steal the words out of Savo's mouth when I say like replicate yourself, like take yourself and create a carbon copy. Like I had a whole different mindset when I was in college versus like not only where I am today, but even my first couple months of just kind of like, watching this, like learning from Savo and this drive and passion. But another thing that also is really, really important to me is like, hey, there's really you don't have anything if you just have data. Well, you could potentially, especially nowadays. But if you have like all this really awesome data or all these really awesome endpoints, it's not much without a really, really beautiful looking, and fully functioning UI. So, super, super, super big hats off to Mac. And I mean, just bringing it back to some of the first couple points, patience, being patient with myself, there being bugs or there being like an over amount of complexity with should be something seemingly simple, and vice versa. But yeah, there's a lot of things that have changed. Not a ton of things that have changed so much, but just have continued to get better. As well too, a lot of the same core principles still apply. I love the same saying that Savo mentioned, that was like, no two job is too easy or too simple or too quick for one individual. Some days we have to do things that we don't want to do, unfortunately. But that's the name of the game. We all wear different hats, and we're all gonna do whatever we can to make it happen.
That's right. I think that's very well said. And I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your day. It's super busy time at Pieces, and make sure to stay tuned because we have a lot coming to you as a user So stay tuned. Thank you again for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Mason.
Thanks, Mason.
Mason.
Bye, everyone. See ya.
See ya.